Let's start off, gentlemen, with the most pressing issue in this election campaign. What do you see that to be, David?
Oh, for us, there is no doubt this is the immigration election. That's what people are saying when I go around the country. And let me tell you, I have been around this country. I don't actually know whether I'm coming or going. But look, we've had 2.5 million people that have come to this country in the last 2 years, and everything comes off that. So people know they can't get their kids into school. They can't actually see a GP. They can't get into hospitals. The roads are terrible. The infrastructure is falling apart. When you look at the number of illegal migrants, this is a fraction of the problem when you compare it to legal migration. And the government says, oh, we've got a plan, we're bringing down legal migration. Are you really? Last year, 685,000 people came to this country. That is the same as a city the size of Manchester. So is it any wonder that everything is falling apart? So it's immigration for us. It's also the economy, of course, the cost of living crisis, that's right up there. The NHS, of course, falling apart. We have terrible waiting lists, as you know, 8 million people on a primary waiting list, 12 million on a secondary waiting list. And of course, we're throwing tons of cash at it, but it's not reaching the floor. I was in Suffolk, actually, last night, and again, crime and policing comes up yet again. We pretty much have decriminalised crime. You can go to Tesco and nick 200 quid's worth of stuff and no one will do anything about it. I mean, totally unacceptable. And one of the other things that I will throw into this is net zero, because the two main parties are worshipping at the altar of net zero. But do you know what? No one can tell me how much it's going to cost. And we believe it's going to cost £3 trillion. No one voted for that. It's on your bill, and people are getting poorer and they are hungrier. And we have seen that, and people really struggling. And they're being told, oh, you've got to replace your boiler. Well, who's paying for that? You know, these are the really pressing issues as I go around the country campaigning.
OK, brilliant. Nick?
I agree. Immigration is a huge issue. And it's come to the front now because people are willing to talk about it. A couple of years ago, people had these problems 2 years ago, but were too scared to use the word immigration, especially mass immigration. We're over the hill now. People are talking about it all the time. And the second thing for me is the fact that people have realised now nothing works in the country anymore. From schooling to NHS, to potholes, to councils, to government. We've been in managed decline for decades, but the average person on the street now can see it, that nothing works. Nothing works the way it's supposed to do. They can't get appointments. Half of our council staff are still working from home. The whole country is a shambles, and people have realised that now, and people are so angry and so annoyed.
Yeah.
So let's drill down into some of those. I mean, as David says, and as you sort of acknowledge as well, Nick, is that immigration is front and centre of this particular election. How do you think the other political parties are dealing with immigration, and what's your solution instead, David?
I mean, poorly, 0 out of 10, I would give Rishi Sunak at the moment. Look, since he came to power, and remember, Andrew, he says he's got a plan. Since he came to power, we've had 50,000 illegal migrants coming into this country. The cost to this country is £8 million every single day. You do the maths. That is huge amounts of money that we are putting in. Now, obviously, since they brought in the illegal migration bill, now we've got to the stage where people are stuck in this country. They're not being processed. And obviously, there is a cost to the taxpayer. And people around the country are saying, hang on a minute, I'm working really hard. I can't actually afford to pay my mortgage or my rent or whatever. If you come here illegally, you're stuck in a hotel, given 3 hot meals a day, and it feels fundamentally unfair. Look, we believe that we need to declare a national emergency. We turn the boats back. We have given France lots of money, 500 million quid we've given France, and they've done diddly squat with it. So we need to turn the boats back, and we can do that under the UN Convention on the Seas, 1951 and 1982, and I'm sure you know that with your barrister's head on. We can do that. We need offshore processing of people who are true asylum seekers, and we can do that in British overseas territories. And fundamentally, I want to leave the European Court of Human Rights. If we don't believe that we, as a developed nation, cannot actually control our borders or indeed trust our judiciary, then something is deeply wrong. We do not need Europe. We voted to leave the European Union, and we are still hanging on, and the ECHR is one of those remnants, and it needs to go.
Nick?
Yes, I think the core issue here is we don't have any politicians anymore with a backbone. What we have now is we have career politicians who are basically middle managers, and middle managers like to be told what to do. Hence why the vast majority of MPs wanted to remain in the EU, why the vast majority of MPs and the cabinet don't want to leave the Court of Human Rights, European Court of Human Rights, is because that means they're responsible. That means they're going to have to make decisions. And middle managers always prefer to implement what someone else tells them to do. You could stop the boats in a fortnight crossing the channel. In 2 weeks, you could stop that. Mass immigration is happening in our country because of managed decline, but also because nobody wants to take the tough decisions today because the economy may take a hit. So nobody wants that to happen on their watch. We don't have any statespeople anymore now. People who come into politics and then say, I'm doing this for the right reasons. It may cost me my career, but I don't care. If you don't like what I'm going to do, vote me out. The last person to say anything like that was Jeremy Corbyn. And I never would have voted for the man. But at least he had a different vision for the country and was a conviction politician. And before that, it was Thatcher. Everybody else in between and the politicians now in Parliament are basically just career politicians. What can I do to extend my career? And that's what's killing us.
Yeah.
And can I just add,
yeah, go
sorry,
for it, David.
Can I just add into that? That's why I think that the reform is so powerful, because we're not career politicians, as you know, and it's growing from the ground up. And that is what is so exciting. And when you look at the polls, and Andrew, you know this because we're friends, when I stuck there with Richard Tice, we were polling at 2%, right? We're now at 18, 19, 20%. There is something extraordinary happening in this country. And Nick is spot on. People are now saying it is unacceptable that hotels in my neighborhood, in my town, are full of migrants. And I would agree. It is totally unacceptable. We've seen the coffee shops, the high street being boarded up because they don't use those services. People are frightened to go into town centres. It's time we had a grown-up conversation and said, look, this is unacceptable.
No, you're absolutely right. I mean, Nick, you raised an interesting point. I mean, you made a very bold statement that you could stop the boats in 2 weeks. There's your soundbite. How would you do it?
Oh, it's easy. The legislation's already there, as David just said. You know, it would take our Border Force, our Royal Navy to get those boats and drag them back to France. I don't see people drowned in the channel, so I'm not talking about anything like that. We would drag them back to France. France would not be happy. There'd be a standoff. They may send gunboats out to stop us, but they're never going to open fire. And let's have it out with the French. If we upset the French, who cares? Do we care? I don't care. So let's have it out with the French, because I don't blame the French. We're giving them £500 million and they're sending us their immigrants. Well done, France. That's what we should be doing. So the French are doing what they're doing for their national sovereignty and for their people. We need to just get a backbone. We used to have a backbone in this country and follow the rule of law and make sure we put our people first. Now we're just globalists. It's like anybody who lands on this soil now think they have a right to be here and stay here and claim benefits. And the answer is, you have no right to be here. And the best you are in this country is a guest. And as a host of this country, we can ask you to leave anytime we like.
I would agree with that. Sorry, I would also say, Andrew, there's something else going on here, which Nick touches on. The French authorities aren't just letting people go across the channel. They're escorting them over the channel. They're getting them to the 12-mile line, and they're like, right, this is the United Kingdom's problems. I've heard reports, and I need to check that this is true, and that is the caveat on that. There are unmarked French vessels that are being used as a taxi service for migrants, formerly boats which were used in the French Coast Guard, which have been basically denuded of any marking, and they are now basically transporting people into our sovereign waters. And Nick is right. We need to say enough is enough. We will control our waters. If necessary, we stick the Royal Navy there. We say to people who are coming across, I'm really sorry, we have to turn you back, and you have to have offshore processing centres.
Did you like that video? I think you did. Hit the bell, give it a big thumbs up, comment, and don't forget, I'm standing for election in Oldham East and Saddleworth. So please share this video, speak to your family and friends if you live in Greater Manchester, and if you live in Oldham East and Saddleworth, make sure you vote for me. Catch you soon.